Hello there. Welcome to the Saroy channel, wherever you are in the world, and so much love to each and every one of you. How are you doing? I do hope you're doing fabulously well, and I hope you're going to spoil yourself by getting yourself something lovely to drink. And you know the rules. If it's something that I don't know about, something rather on the unusual side, let me know about it. And also let me know what the weather's like in your part of the world. I always love to hear from you. So before we get started, and you know that stories are so lovely, this one is no exception to that rule. If you haven't heard the first part of the story, click to part 1, and then we carry on to part 2. And let's get started with Orlog's story. It was hard to believe I'd loved Chancer once. Love can indeed be an enigmatic thing, where common sense may not always be engaged. I remember within days of meeting him, I thought he was the one for me. Everything about him made my heart flutter. Was this not how you were supposed to feel when you fell in love? A tingling electricity that filled you with a dewy excitement that brings the colour burning to your cheeks and a skip to your step. When I wasn't in his presence, I could think about nothing else but him, almost as if he was becoming an all-consuming obsession of mine that I couldn't live without, as if he was the yang to my yin. He'd swept me off my feet. I never thought I'd come down to earth, but let's just say when I did, it was with a big, mighty bang. That was not going to be a smooth or happy landing either. Chancer wasn't tall. He was about 5'7", confident and self-assured, with a cockiness I would later learn to despise. When I first met him, I found his assertiveness rather attractive and endearing. It complemented his audacious impertinence. But the very thing that I first loved about him soon became adulterated, polluted, soiled by a toxic anger that would soon invade his life like a rampant cancer. Chancer is what I would have described as slender, with a neat build, with muscles he had attained from drumming rather than in the gym, which made him streamlined and strong rather than bubbly. His head was serenaded with curly sweeps of silky brown hair that was cropped up in the middle of his head, in a funky, upbeat hairstyle that gave him a cheeky, mischievous look, reflecting his innate sense of fun. His skin invited a warm olive glow on a perfectly symmetrical hairless face, which sometimes would be shadowed or dappled with a day-old stubble. His somewhat hooded brown hazel eyes were always alive with humour. When he asked me to marry him, I hadn't hesitated to say yes, as doubts about spending my entire life with him was not entertained, not even for a fleeting second. For indeed this dreamy, perfect gentleman, whom it seemed could do absolutely no wrong, treated me like a queen throughout our relationship, opening car doors for me, wining and dining me at some highly esteemed, illustrious restaurants in New York City, where we ate the most phenomenal food and drank the finest French champagne. Once as a surprise he whisked me off to stay at a posh hotel on the Champs-Élysées in Paris. It was a spur-of-the-moment decision for him to take me to the capital of romance, where he spoilt me rotten and brought me the most exclusive designer Louis Vuitton and Chanel handbags and Hermes scarves, while we were there, that is. I was so incredibly spoilt, and what girl doesn't enjoy being pampered once in a while? Let's just say even my girlfriends thought I'd certainly landed in the clover, with the exception, of course, of my parents, who begrudgingly smelt a rat from the very beginning. My father always used to say, "If something looks too good to be true, then it most likely, very definitely is." My father was a man that never held back his opinion. He described Chancer as like a fox in a chicken coop, as he believed there was a darker side to my husband's personality, a sly, manipulative side that had not yet been unveiled to me. My husband was 5 years older than me, and was successful in his job. But after his brother died, having been found kicked to the curb by a violent thug outside a bar, it was almost as if my husband had died with his brother. On the inauspicious, fateful night, upon which the gnarled, tangled shoots of despair had been birthed, it was after this serendipitous event that our lives spiralled out of control. The waters of our relationship became muddied, so that instead of presenting solid, secure foundations, it became like a precarious, slippery slope. It would seem that grief lashed out at Chancer, like a belligerent bull terrier, punching him so hard in the guts, that like a wary wrestler who's been knocked onto the ground too many times. He finds it impossible to rise to his feet again, as if life had callously vanquished and willfully defeated him. I watched him slipping and sliding down that slope of depression. I actively encouraged him to seek help with a counsellor, but after 2 sessions with a grief counsellor, he was convinced that the counselling had made him become even more aggrieved, rather than less. It was true, after the counselling, things did seem to take a drastic turn for the worse, almost fueling his rage, as if someone had suddenly tossed petrol on the red embers of his anger, which, much like a wildfire, was now completely out of control. I remember looking at my husband and thinking, this is not what I signed up for when I married you. I felt as if I'd been cheated, as if someone had shown me a glossy magazine brochure and said, this is what you're going to get when you marry Chancer. But the reality was very different. Had it all been a horrible deceptive lie, false manipulative advertising on Chancer's part, similar to what you see on deceptive social media sites, when people willfully post up such glamorous pictures online of themselves that sometimes don't even bear a remote resemblance to what they actually look like in real life, along with their seemingly perfect lives that can be persuasively impressive. But in the cruel, brutal light of day, the blazing brightness can unkindly show up the truth, revealing the hidden horrors that lie beneath, that you never discerned before, like glamorous wallpaper in a Victorian mansion that sneakily, rather clandestinely covers up all the cracks and craggy pits on a less than smooth surface to hide the truth. But slowly and surely the facade begins to blister and crack. You can see the grim reality that lurks beneath, which is a whole lot less pretty, which is what it's like for me with Chancer. I know they say until death do you part, but Chancer had become volatile and explosive, like a landmine that could potentially go off in any second, if you provoked, that is, or rubbed him up the wrong way. One subject that really irked him was what to do about our dwindling finances, after Chancer had been sacked from attacking his boss during work hours, of all things. One action that was creating the domino effect in our lives to almost certainly be unleashed. I really need to get a job, I'd explained to him. We can't remain in this luxury apartment without any income. Surely you know that. What did you say? Says Chancer, thrusting his hand under my chin and throwing me violently against the wall. The first time he did this to me, I was completely thrown off guard, and so shocked and bewildered that it was almost as if what was unfolding wasn't really happening, as my husband had never laid a hand on me before. I said I need to find a job, Chancer. We can't possibly live on fresh air, can we? My words compound his fury. They're not what he wants to hear. He punches the wall with his fists. You're not going to work. You understand that? You're not bloody going to work. My voice is trembling. Chancer, don't be so ridiculous and unreasonable. It's not like we actually have a choice in the matter. If we did, that would be different, but we don't. If we don't pay our rent, we'll be thrown out of the apartment. You don't want to do a menial job, and I get that, but someone needs to work. Or how on earth are we going to support ourselves? Now that you're not working, we cannot possibly afford the rent on this lavish apartment. We need to find modest accommodation. My words infuriate Chancer. He pounds my nose with his fists. The pain is excruciating. It feels as if my nose has been knocked off my face, as if it's broken. I clutch my fingers over my nose, looking at him through horrified eyes. What have you done? I can feel and taste the scarlet liquid streaming down my face. Chancer then punches me in my guts. I wince in agony. A dreadful pain sweeps over my stomach. I keel over on the floor in a crumpled heap and curl over in a fetus position. My nose is swilling blood all over the place, even dappling my clothes with its specks. I'm surprised how red my blood looks, as it pools onto the wooden parquet floors, in miniature crimson ponds. Finally, when I manage to stumble awkwardly to my feet, I challenge my husband. I'm not going to be a doormat for him. I'm not going to allow him to walk all over me with such disregard and to physically abuse me like this. Who on earth does he think he is? Chancer, what the hell is wrong with you? I scream out at him. Why would you hit me like this? I think I've broken my nose. It's really hurting. You've really hurt me. You've never laid a hand on me before.
and if you ever do so again, I'm out of here."
Of course, Chancer apologised profusely, rather bashfully, I might add. But even I'm not foolish enough to stay with someone indefinitely if they don't apologise over a physical altercation that they actually caused. Chancer calmed the storm down, saying everything I needed to hear, everything I wanted so desperately to believe. Needless to say, his reassuring, kind words were rather like a band-aid on a nasty cut, as it was only a matter of time before it was ripped away all over again. Chancer informed me he was just going through a rough time, that was all it was, that he had meant me no harm, and he didn't mean to lash out like that. And of course it would never ever happen again. By all accounts, those words were faint, ambiguous, rather obscure promises that never lasted. In truth, everything began to make my husband mad, no matter how trivial or minuscule. Even in the supermarket he had an altercation with the manager once, as the shop were out of his favourite brand of cookies. I mean, how juvenile is that? There was a slanging match that ensued. A few punches later there was blood all over the manager's nose. Because my husband had punched him there. My husband ended up being arrested. Slowly but surely, drip by drip, I began to become afraid of Chancer. When we moved to the countryside to stay in Louis Montgomery's trailer home near the town of Lake George, gateway to the southern Adirondack Mountains that lies in the upper regions of the Appalachian Valley, 4 hours' drive from Ottawa in Canada, and about 3.5 hours away from New York City. It was then that things got significantly worse, as without a job my husband would literally while away the long lonely hours drinking beer and being inflamed by his own self-pity, whereupon he decided that the entire world had conspired against him, that no one could be trusted, especially not me. That was the funny thing. I must admit the large piece of land that Chancer's friend had procured for the future building development of their lakefront home, that overlooked the exquisite views of Lake George, which boasted an array of charming little islands that you can reserve for overnight camping. Lake George is an oligotrophic lake, and the lake water is so crystal clear. I am told that the mountains surrounding Lake George create a watershed with the steep, small forested slopes that successfully manage to keep pollution at bay, and hence preserve the clarity of the water. The lake is annually stocked with landlocked salmon and naturally reproducing stocks of trout and bass, so fishing at the lake is rewarding, and there are some substantial size fish to be procured, if you're a good fisherman, that is. If our finances had not been so dire in the circumstances, and let's just say they were pitiful, staying in this exquisite location would have been incredibly special. Lake George was transfixingly beautiful. It quite literally took my breath away. I found myself feeling envious about Chancer's friend, Louis Montgomery, living in this rural New York area, about to build his dream home here, in the not-too-distant future, overlooking such exquisite, mesmerising views. I think even Chancer realised that his anger had quite literally robbed us of our future, possibly staying at the trailer and knowing how short-term and indefinite this arrangement was, only provoked his aggression, like someone poking an aggressive dog with a stick, I imagine. I think Chancer believed everyone in his firm was conspiring against him to stop him from ever working again, but nothing could have been further from the truth. But Chancer never saw it that way. Chancer had been popular in the workplace, loved by so many, who would have been delighted to see him getting back on his feet again. Mr. Brothering, his boss, had kindly assured him if he received anger management courses he would almost certainly be welcomed back into the fold with open arms. "You are very talented and skilled, Chancer," he had told him generously. "Furthermore, everyone in the workplace is exceedingly fond of you, and you are genuinely missed by everyone. I don't bear any grudges about what you did, breaking my nose like that. I understand losing your brother was a devastating blow for you. You were naturally venting your anger. But I cannot receive you back into my employ until I'm fully satisfied from a professional point of view that you've gone through anger management and are able to control your temper. I hope you appreciate that I have a duty of care to all my staff that work under my employ, to protect them from any physical danger or altercations. I'm also not in a position to give you a glowing reference to other potential employers seeking to hire you.
I would not be responsible if I did not mention the unfortunate altercation that led to your dismissal. Otherwise, I can give you a glowing reference, but this part of it I am going to have to reveal to them."
Chancer was furious.
"He wants me to get bloody anger management." "Does he? Is that what he wants? And only then he'll consider recruiting me, when he's fully satisfied that I've adequately calmed down and that I don't impose a little threat to his staff. What an arrogant, pompous git! A real Philistine! Oh, he thinks he's such a big shot, does he not?"
says Chancer churlishly, his feathers clearly more than a little ruffled, his jaw clenching tightly, his eyes glaring indignantly.
"Well, you did break his nose like you did mine," I remind him. "Mr. Brothering has good reason to be on the fence about taking you back. I mean, he's right. He has a responsibility to his staff, does he not? Your anger that day, Chancer, it got completely out of control. But there is a way back. Mr. Brothering is making a way back for you." "You bloody little bitch! You spiteful cow! Whose side are you on?" says my husband, thrusting a fist violently into my belly, while the pain just pounds inside me. "Please don't, Chancer! You're hurting me! It really hurts! This is so sore! What are you doing?" "You bloody bitch! Whose bloody side are you on? Mine or Mr. Brothering's? Tell me that!"
"Stop it, Chancer," I say, the salty tears spilling down my cheeks.
"I'm always on your side. You know that. I'm only telling you the truth. You know Mr. Brotherings is trying to help you. People care about you.
They want you to return to work. They really do. They've got your back."
"You don't know what the F you're talking about, you dipstick. You haven't got a bloody clue, have you? You've always been an airhead, always will be an airhead. Do you know why I'm not getting any work in my line of business? Do you know? It's that prick, Mr. Brothering. He's telling any future employees, 'Oh, yes, Chancer's very good at his job, but watch out, he might just punch you in the nose when you're not looking.' That man is completely, deliberately sabotaging my chances of being employed again. It's like he's got all the power in his hands. Everyone is turning me away. Do you realise that? Everyone is turning me away. Even before I have an interview. Who would ever bloody hire me if they knew I had punched my boss in the nose? You're talking bull when you say he has my best interests at heart. The man wants to humiliate me, drag me down, destroy my good reputation."
"Look, Chancer, please don't punch me for saying this," I say boldly, covering my stomach in self-defence, as I subconsciously mentally prepare for another cruel blow to come my way. "Mr. Brotherings is absolutely right. He does have to warn other potential employers about what you did. He told you himself. If you went to anger management, all this could be sorted out. You could be reinstated in your job. So why don't you do it? It can't be that hard signing up for anger management, can it? And regardless about what you say, the old you would never have laid a hand on me. But I'm turning into your punching bag for you, so you can unleash your wrath upon me, and your outbursts, they're not normal, Chancer. You've already broken my nose once, so you do have huge issues with anger. And I do think you're in denial. You need to face the truth, Chancer. You need help. You need to acknowledge that you actually do have a problem. You need to own it. That's what they do at Alcoholics Anonymous and all those drug rehabilitation centres. They own it. They acknowledge it. They say, my name is Chancer. I've got a problem with anger. I need to face the truth, do I? And get help, do I? Lovely. That's rich coming from you. You think I need help? Says Chancer, throwing me violently against the wall, squeezing my shoulders so hard I'm wincing out in pain, as he stares blazingly in my eyes with a deranged, maddened look on his face that scares the bejesus out of me. Please stop, Chancer. You're really hurting me. I feel like I don't know you anymore. You're not the man I married. You've morphed into a monster. You know what, Orla? I don't think you ever knew me, you bitch.
I can see how disappointed you are in me, the way you look at me all the time, with such pity. You're pathetic, you know that. If I hit you, it's 'cause you're asking for it. You are the one that made me do it. You were the one that provoked me, not the other way round.
I watch in horror as Chancer pummels his fists into the aluminium walls of the trailer house. My heart sinks. I know if he was doing that to me, I would quite literally be dead. And no pun intended. I'm potentially living with a dangerous man. His anger is literally out of control. He's like an elephant in musk that wants to tear down everything he sees, as rational thought and consideration has seemingly been confiscated by excessive bursts of testosterone, adrenaline, and cortisol. Please, Chancer, this is someone else's trailer house. You can't go damaging it like this. It isn't our property to ruin, and we won't be able to afford to pay for all the damages if you keep punching the walls like that.
Ha! I know what this is all about, Orla. I'm not making big bucks that I made before. There's no nice little trips to Paris to buy little Hermes scarves or expensive designer handbags. I can see what's going on in your little pea-sized brain. Don't think I can't. You think that if I hadn't punched my boss, we wouldn't be in this mess, and your life would be lavishly cushioned with prosperity. Our nice apartment in New York, trips abroad. Don't think I don't know what's going on in your little head all the time, and how bitterly disappointed you are with me.
Look, Chancer, no one is judging you. I wish you'd get that. I really do. Everyone understands why you were so upset when your brother died, and anger is a natural reaction to grief. But your anger has got out of control. It's volatile. It's explosive. It's deadly. I'm scared of you, Chancer. I'm scared of you.
You know what I need, Orla, right now? I need to wring your neck like a chicken, and I'm very tempted to do so, so you better get out before it's too late. Get out of here now. I will not have a wife of mine lecturing me on what I should or should not do.
All right, I'm going, I say, stomping out of the trailer, my eyes welling up with tears. I close the door behind me until it clicks shut gently in its slot. I hear Chancer kicking the furniture, muttering under his breath, That bloody woman! I could kill her. Of course he's talking about me. My sneakers are now pressed on the pleasingly soft earthen ground, laced with ankle-high grasses and wild flowers. I glance towards the shimmering crystal-clear lake, that under the gossamer shadows of the sun is so beguiling. The diaphanous surface twinkling in the soft late afternoon light, reflecting the distant billowing curves of the mountains and the sumptuous vegetation of the trees and plants that cluster and cling to the sturdy foundations in curtains of viridescent splendour. I soak in the exquisite landscape like a ravenous hungry sponge that needs to absorb all the flavours of my beautiful environment, for I am starving and craving beauty, tranquillity and peace in my life. And it is all generously accessible to me out here in nature. It is within this exquisite beauty that I find my peace. It is the natural world that can dry my tears, extinguish my sorrows. It seemed so morally wrong to be in a place as fabulous as this, while being so incredibly miserable. The two don't go hand in hand. How can beauty complement the ugliness of what our relationship has become? The hateful words, the unkind accusations that we launch at each other like missiles from beyond enemy lines. It's almost like me and my husband are at war with each other, and every time we try to negotiate a peace deal, it almost always incites still more violence on his part. As is in the case in any war-torn situation, you begin to despise your enemy. It would seem that Chancer has become an enemy in my life, an enemy fighting on the other side. He's fighting for the right to humour his bloody-minded tenacity, refusing to dignify himself with even a remote touch of humility, common sense, and a broader perspective, while I'm fighting desperately to be heard by him, for him to open his eyes and see what is actually going on in our relationship, what he's doing to our marriage, to us. He's like the fox that entered the chicken coop and bit off the heads of all the chickens. I'd been so sure our relationship could be salvaged, that hope could be uncovered under the debris, that it could be cleaned up and restored, brought back to its original lustrous shine. But my hope is wearing thin. It's dangling precariously by a single fine silvery thread, that could so easily snap at any given moment, so that the life force of our relationship will just depart like a soul leaving a body and being no more. The flames of our love are burning out, the embers are barely visible. A faint smouldering flicker might just be seen, but not much is left, not any more. And when your hope is gone, then it's all over, as without hope, there's nothing. I relinquish all thoughts of Chancer from my mind, emptying my mind of all my troubles, as if thrusting all the garbage of ungraceful thoughts down the waste paper disposal system in my kitchen. I'm determined to enjoy this beautiful walk, without tarnishing it with the soiled, demolishing debris of ugly words that have been used like bullets against me. In that moment I affirmed to myself that I'm a warrior soul. I can overcome anything. I'm already feeling renewed, as my feet pad across the soft, earthen, spongy ground, towards the old-growth forest, made up of what is yellow birch and spruce trees. I'm guessing some of these spectacular trees are easily over 200 years old, for they have an aged look about them that suggests they've been around for a long time, long before I was even born. That's a very comforting feeling, you know. I ambled into the woods. My heart becomes as light as a feather, as if the heaviness consuming me has just flown away on a pair of wings. The forest is so mind-blowingly beautiful. I almost have to hold my breath. I'm in such awe. The tall, powerful trunks of the magnificent yellowwood trees dominate the landscape with a magisterial grace. They glide up into the sky with a steadfast deportment that is sturdy, reliable, solid, dependable. Yet there is a contemporary art engendered in every single tree trunk and every extended branch that rises to the canopy in pretty curls and sweeps, as none of these trees are stiff or uniformly straight, but are curvaceous and yielding, with ballerinic twists to their branches. I am drawn to the reliability of these trees, whose secured, knotty, steady roots are anchored into the rich, moist earth with a resolute determination, like noble warriors that will fight to the death to stand their ground. The stunning sculptural roots of the trees wrap themselves tenaciously around boulders like octopus tentacles, while some trees stand up on stilt-like roots. Many of them first grew from a little root ball, through a boulder or a mossy tree stump, that possibly rotted away a very long time ago. I bask in this gorgeous scent of this woodland sanctuary that embodies the uplifting fresh notes of wintergreen, which seems to open up all the nasal cavities so that I breathe it all in as I've never breathed before. It's a minty, sweet aroma that almost has a eucalyptics or Vicks-like quality to it. I'm enamoured by the dazzling confetti of yellow leaves that cascades above my head in showers of gold, while the long tree trunks are a silvery grey colour, with curling strips that blister the bark, like an exfoliating peeling paint. I observe a cloudless sky, encompassing the trees above my head, in a sea of cobalt blue. I catch fleeting glimpses of it, peeking at me through the branches. The forest is beautifully shaded, the ground richly moist, the lighting in the forest ethereal, the birds' song enchanting, very musical and uplifting. I am greeted to a crescendo of pretty chirps and tweets. My feet eagerly amble over rocky appendages that jut angrily through the ground, occasional gnarled roots, fallen tree trunks covered in a plethora of green moss, lichen and birch bracket fungus that is so prolific in this golden jungle. I feel enervated, almost as if the strength of the trees has influenced my flagging spirits, as if my deflated body is standing up a little bit more confidently, even as I walk. I found myself happily whistling "Don't Worry, Be Happy," which seems to be exceedingly apt in the circumstances. I should take heed of the message buried within the words. The funny thing is the tune has suddenly just come into my head, almost as if by magic, and then curiously an extraordinary thing happens. Something is copying my tune precisely. Their whistle is definitely more fluid than mine, but when I stop whistling, so do they, at exactly the same time. How curious! I look around. Whoever is whistling has to be close by. But there's no one there. I know it's not Chancer. He can't whistle to save his life. But someone is in this forest, and they're whistling very happily along with me. For a moment I wonder if it could be a bird. I've certainly heard that birds can mimic whistling sounds. So I find myself craning my neck up into the tree branches, feeling absolutely certain I'll spot an unusual bird copying my whistle. But that is not what I see. My eyes at first are greeted to a big blob or mass of black that is hidden behind the branches of the tree. I find myself thinking, what the hell is that? I move towards the strange silhouette, not knowing what it could be that I'm encountering. Could it be a black leopard or a cougar? As far as I know, they hang around in trees, do they not? That would explain this huge thing that I appeared to be seeing. I had heard stories of black leopards seen in America before, but had never taken such bizarre accounts seriously. There is something incredibly big in the tree. I move closer, not engaging any fear or trepidation, but a mere inquisitive curiosity that needs satisfying, like an insatiable, annoying itch that you just have to scratch. I need to know what's in that tree. That's when I see a leaf branch being snapped off. It floats down from the tree, landing at my feet, followed by another and another. That is when I see the creature, very clearly, as the branches that this dark silhouette had literally concealed have now been snapped off the tree and are lying by my feet. I'm astonished by what I'm perceiving, that for a brief moment I think that my imagination has got to be playing tricks with me. I'm staring at a Bigfoot. Is that even possible? But there is no doubt about this in my mind. My mouth is hanging open so wide that I could probably catch flies if I really wanted to, while my eyes are possibly bursting out of their sockets exceedingly rudely. This was not what I was expecting to see, not at all, and I'm not sure quite how to react. Am I in danger? Is this imposing creature a threat to my life? I can't be sure about anything right now, but I'm certainly not compelled to run or scream. But I stand my ground, stoically and composed, like one of the yellow birch trees in the wood. I just stare and stare and stare and stare. If I did this on the underground in New York, I would almost certainly be challenged aggressively for being so obnoxiously rude.
"What's your problem, ma'am? Why are you staring at me all the time?"
They would probably scream at me. It's easy to cause offence on the subway, believe me, I know. The Bigfoot climbs down the tree, holding the branches with her hands, and swinging off them like a monkey. She moves with a stealth, an effortless fluidity and agility that is so gracefully impressive, until she jumps from the final branch, landing on her feet on the forest floor, like a cat from a kitchen counter. She stands only yards away from me. At first she seems smaller than I first envisaged, but then she unrolls her curled-up body like a scroll, standing up proud and tall before me. And I am mesmerised by her gargantuan size, quite daunted by it actually. But at the same time I feel pretty certain that she wants to be seen by me. If she didn't want to see me, she would have been a lot less conspicuous. I must be standing about 3 feet away from her. She is absolutely Herculean. I'd say she's at least 7.5 to 8 foot tall, exceedingly intimidating, maybe even more. Her shoulders are easily 4 foot across the very powerful chest area. She has a young, exuberant energy about her, but she's clearly a fully grown adult. She has small breasts, a body dense with muscle, and much like the yellow birch trees, she's made of solid, robust stuff. I notice her silky hair is actually a very dark brown colour, rather than black. But what perturbs me the most is her human-like appearance. Granted, her head rises to a pointed tip, and is low slung on her shoulders, with barely any impression of a neck, although there is one, but it's very stout and short. Yet her feminine face is actually rather pretty, almost delicate compared to the rest of her body, which is rather incongruous actually. But it's her eyes that bedazzle me the most. Her eyes are so beautifully kind. They're genuinely interested and fascinated in me. I possibly should feel fear. This Bigfoot has a warm, congenial, benevolent energy, and I can't help myself, but I like her at once. I really do. And I'm not quick to like people, but I do with her. As she looks at me, our eyes meet. I feel a connection with her at once. She's studying me judiciously, looking at me as if she's reading me like a book. I get the sense she knows everything about me, as if she can perceive my energy and even my heart, almost as if she knows things about me that I might not even know about myself. There is nothing remotely primitive about her. I sense she has extrasensory abilities that as humans we are only beginning to tap into. The creature begins to whistle my song right back to me. Now, there's no way she knew this song before. There's absolutely no way. How could she possibly have known it? I whistled it, but like she's downloaded the musical notes in her mind and can whistle them right back to me with such ease. We whistle the song together, our eyes remaining fixed on each other. Our joint whistling session seems to break the ice between us as we warm to each other much more, and I know that I could trust this Bigfoot with my life. I also know she genuinely likes me, like I like her. Right now I could seriously do with a friend, as that part of my life is running on dry. Unfortunately, I fell out with my parents over marrying Chancer, and have not spoken to them since that date. They never liked him. It was as if they sensed there was something off about him. My father turned around to me and literally begged me not to marry Chancer. Imagine your own father begging you not to marry someone. I was absolutely furious and affronted with him.
"Sweetheart," he'd said to me, "your boyfriend reminds me of those glossy pin-ups in social media sites, full of promise, but underneath it all, there's just flimsy foundations filled with hot air."
I decide to cast the touchy subject of my parents to one side and try another tune on the Bigfoot to see how she will respond to it. Will she memorize it? Will she remember it off by heart, as if it's been downloaded in her mind? I think of a tune. Then I whistle Jealous Guy, and to my amazement she copies the tune precisely. We whistle it together several times. I'm thinking to myself, how the heck do you do that? I hear the answer to that question in my head, as if the Bigfoot has spoken directly to me. I recalled the memory in my mind, so I don't forget it. Comes a female voice in my head that is definitely not my own. The female Bigfoot spoke to me in my head. She actually spoke to me. And I'm not going mad. Really, I'm not. I look at the Bigfoot and swear she's laughing at my dumbfounded bemusement. It seems the two of us, in such a short space of time, have formed an unlikely friendship. When I indicate that I need to be getting back to the trailer, although God only knows why I do, the Bigfoot accompanies me by my side, as if she's known me all my life, and is well acquainted with me. It's a surreal feeling. I watch how she walks, and it's like she glides, while she swings her arms backwards and forwards. I make my way gingerly back to the trailer. My heart begins to sink like the sun setting behind the horizon, as I dread the prospect of what I am soon to confront. Will I encounter an apologetic Chancer, or will he be irate, as mad as when I last left him? I dread to think. I can feel a nervous energy brewing in my body, like a soft wind gaining wind speed. When we get to the edge of the yellow birch forest, the Bigfoot female stands still. She studies the trailer house where I'm staying. She draws in a deep breath. She scratches her head, furrows her brow, turns around and looks at me directly. I see worry in her treacle-coloured eyes, and I begin to wonder if she can actually read the energy of the trailer, like those psychic investigators do when they visit a haunted location and pick up the energy of the place. The only way I can describe her reaction to you is like a dog that suddenly becomes very alert to the sound of unwanted activity in the house and senses something bad is about to unfold. "Nice to meet you," I say to the creature, like I would to any other human being, as in truth I see her as much like myself, only covered with hair, infinitely stronger and bigger. She grabs my arms for a moment, and I hear in my head, "Be careful. The energy is dark, very dark." When I open the door of the trailer, the television is blaring loudly, and Chancer is watching a sports game on television. There's a crate of beer at his feet, along with many buckled cans lying strewn over the floor, while there's an empty pizza box lying across the coffee table. He looks up at me with eyes rolling at the back of his head. I can tell he's completely bladdered.
"So finally she returns. The lady of the manor. Too good for me, are you? Too good for me. Where have you been? Answer me. Where have you been? Why have you been gone for so long? I was waiting for you. But you never came back. Why didn't you come back? Why didn't you come back?"
My husband is so drunk, I don't humour him with an answer, as everything that comes out of his mouth is complete and utter nonsense. I speedily make my way to the kitchen to prepare myself a sandwich, which I take to my bedroom with a cup of tea, I'm sleeping in a separate bedroom from my husband because I don't feel safe sharing a bed with him. I lock the bedroom door behind me, pulling up an upholstered chair against the door for further protection. Then two things dawn on me so eloquently, as if I've had a moment of clarity when my mind has become as clear as Lake George. Number one, no one should live in this kind of fear from their own husband. And number two, what the hell am I doing living in the pocket of a man who has actually become my enemy? For a moment, I reflect over this, and then I smile to myself, as for so long I felt empty, defeated, isolated and alone. But today, I actually made a friend. The next morning I wake up to see the light of the early morning sun flickering through the open crack of the purple Velcro curtain in the poky, very bland, spare lilac-coloured room that I'm sleeping in. I rise up out of my hard, unyielding single bed, throw on a yellow sundress with a pretty matching cardigan, as the bright colour reflects my ebullient mood. How could I possibly be depressed after meeting that beautiful Bigfoot of whom I developed such a rapport? I hope to see her again. I glide a brush through the long sweeps of my dark brown hair, that is slightly tangled this morning, but I work it vigorously through the hair until it's smooth. I walk into the living area to discover my husband never made it to bed last night. Why does that not surprise me? He's lying passed out on the sofa, snoring loudly. The residue of a 4-day-old stubble prickles his chin. He looks as if he's been wearing the same clothes for several days. I'm struck by how unkempt he looks. Even some street vagrants look better than he does. I notice a sour, pungent scent in the room, along with a strong smell of alcohol, which I think is coming from Chancer. I quietly clear up the mess around my sleeping husband, mindfully aware that this trailer home is not ours. We need to respect it and return it to the Montgomerys in tip-top condition. But I can see that that is never going to happen. My husband has already caused way too much damage, with thrashing the walls so hard there are holes everywhere. I gather all the excesses of my husband's drinking binge in a black bin liner, returning to the kitchen to prepare myself a much-needed cup of coffee. Moments later, the peace is disturbed by my husband's voice screaming out, "What the fuck? What the fuck?" He then comes charging into the kitchen like a belligerent rhino. He grabs me by the scruff of the collar.
"What the heck have you done? You think this is funny?"
He drags me across the floor. I see my husband's truck is standing about 3 feet away from the front door. It was parked about 100 feet away from the trailer, so it's clearly been moved. But the extraordinary thing is that my husband's truck is now completely lined with mosses that stretch over the bonnet, above the roof, towards the trunk, and this moss is made from big bricks, rather like when you're laying down turf, or if you're laying down bricks for an igloo. It looks just like that. But this is in fact my husband's truck we're talking about. There are 2 small trees planted in the soil above the roof of his car. One whose roots are covered with mossy earth. The other tree has been planted into the ground upside down, so that the dried-up roots are dangling in the air. In truth, it looks like some kind of weird, cryptic message, but I'm not quite sure what it's supposed to mean.
"So this is what you got up to last night, is it? You bitch! You real bitch! Oh, I can't stand the sight of you. You make me sick. You surreptitiously parked my car here, covered my entire car with mossy earth, planted trees on top of the roof. What do you think you're doing? Have you lost leave of your senses? Are you stark raving mad? And you think you're funny?"
It's in that moment a huge beam sweeps over my face, and I burst out laughing. I'm sorry, I can't help myself. I laugh so much that I'm literally doubled over. It's so funny to see my husband's truck thickly covered with mossy earth and 2 trees planted on top of it. I realise at once that the Bigfoot did this and actually moved my husband's car with her own bare hands, but she is very strong. My husband is so not amused.
"You bloody bitch! You bloody bitch! What a cow you are! I don't know you any more. What on earth is going on in that head of yours? And I know what this is all about. Don't think I don't. You don't want me to go to town to buy more beers. Is that it? This is your cunning way of stopping me. As if you can possibly stop me from buying beers if I want them."
I can see his face has grown crimson with rage. He slaps me violently hard across the cheeks. I wince in pain.
Clean this bloody mess up! I want my truck clean!
I quickly set to work removing the dirt, dragging the small trees off the car, but seeing my husband's horrified face was hilarious, and I realised my Bigfoot friend has quite the sense of humour. Later that day I meet up with her in the woodgrove, and we walk together. I like her so much. She reveals to me that I'm like the tree that was planted in good soil, but my husband's roots have become rotten and dark. She sent him a cryptic message to tell him to get his life in check, to become more grounded in his life. A sagacious piece of advice he would do well to take on board, but I doubt my husband understood that message. It is later that night that my husband notices a very big shadowy face that appears to be staring at us through the window. I see the glimmer of golden yellow eyes, and I know at once it's my Bigfoot friend. But my husband has seen her. He's not impressed.
"What the fuck?"
he says. He immediately grabs a rifle. He storms out of the trailer. I can see the figure of my Bigfoot friend glancing over her shoulders as she quickly glides away from my husband, who is firing shots after her as he tries to chase after her. I really believe he's going to kill her. I can't possibly let this happen. He's got to stop. He's got to stop now. He's not going to kill my friend. There's no way. I immediately run up to my husband and I wrestle him for the rifle. "Stop it! Stop it!" I scream. I'm lashing out at him, hitting him hard with my hands and begging him to stop. Tears are streaming down my face. I'm well aware this is a stupid and dangerous thing to do, but I don't care. My husband drops the rifle, which falls precariously on the ground, and begins to attack me back.
"It was a bloody Bigfoot, you stupid bitch! It was looking at us through the window. I was trying to kill the bloody thing for us, but you show no bloody gratitude, do you? You can't kill her.
She's my friend," I cry out. "She's my friend." My husband throws me onto the ground, punches me in the nose, and I can feel the blood trailing down my face. He then begins to kick me with his boot over and over again. The pain is excruciating. He turns around to see the female Bigfoot standing there, looking at him with seething eyes, burning with fire. If looks could kill, she's wearing that look. She's holding his rifle in her hands, which she managed to retrieve from the ground. And before his very eyes, she snaps the rifle into pieces, and then runs towards me, gathering me into her hands and throwing me over her shoulders. My husband is wise enough not to run after her. The Bigfoot carries me a long way away, dropping me off on a roadside that has reasonable traffic. She speaks to my head. "Find a safe place. Next time he'll kill you. I'll always be your friend." She then places me on the ground affectionately, pats my back, and I watch her glide away. I wave down a car, and would you believe it, a woman picks me up, whom is going to New York, and she is the very nurse who treated me in the hospital and gave me your card, and she insisted I was to come to the safe house. So that's why I'm here. Back to Enid. When Enid listens to Orlog's story, she is completely amazed. She's heard some incredible stories in her life about the victims of abuse, but never a serendipitous story like this. Never. Enid is so enchanted by this story that she has completely forgotten about her aches and pains that have been bothering her for her entire life. In this moment in time, she is wrapped in a bubble of intrigue, and has never been more grateful for Bridget's annoying voice badgering her to open the front door, as she has a sneaking suspicion that there are no other people that will be privileged to hear such a phenomenal story, of which she does not doubt is the absolute truth. To cut a long story short, Orlog moved into the Dove house and decided that she too wanted to start up a house for battered, abused women, having become one herself. Enid helped her become established in a secret location overlooking Lake George, where she was able to receive sponsorship from a charity interested in procuring a safe haven for victims of abuse. She's been helping women like herself as a vocation in life. To this very day, she has an ongoing friendship with her Bigfoot friend, while the relationship with her parents has thankfully been fully restored. After seeking a divorce from her husband Chancer, who was involved in a drink-driving accident, which may well have been a blessing in disguise, as it forced him to recuperate in hospital for a long while, after which he chose to attend anger management and finally returned back to work. Luckily, he's been able to rebuild his life all over again, and to this day he and Orlog are on friendly terms, but that's all they'll be, friends. So there you are. That's my story. Wow, what an incredible story. Until next time, goodbye and good night.